Welcome back, folks, to the Random Video Blog, where every single Friday I, Graham G.S. Matthews, give my thoughts on the wrestling world, share a few stories, etc., etc. And as I promised last week, today's video blog is ranking my top 5 favorite Daniel Bryan matches in WWE. I may have said 10, but I feel like 10 would be too much, and that video would be too long. So I'm going to shorten down the list to 5 here today, and I'll give you 5 extra honorable mentions that you can check out on your own. So these are the matches that would have been 6 through 10, starting with 10 versus Mark Henry on the November 23rd, or rather 30th, episode of SmackDown, Super SmackDown Live in 2011. Steel cage match for the World Heavyweight Championship. That was right around the time that Daniel Bryan was Mr. Money in the Bank. He'd become the number 1 contender to the World Heavyweight title in mid-November of 2011 and went on to face Mark Henry for the World Championship on SmackDown. Great storytelling. Mark Henry was on the greatest role of his career at that point. And Daniel Bryan had another very good quality match with Mark Henry over the World Heavyweight Championship. So that's a great match. Coming in at number 9 versus Dolph Ziggler from the 2010 Bragging Rights pay-per-view. I think it was ranked by WWE.com as the second best match of 2010, right next to Shawn Michaels and Undertaker, and deservedly so. That was a very fast-paced, action-packed matchup, and their 2 subsequent rematches on Raw and SmackDown that week were also very good. But that was my personal favorite bout between the two. Coming in at number 8, the match with Sheamus from the 2012 Extreme Rules pay-per-view, 2 out of 3 count falls for the World Heavyweight Championship in Chicago. The dynamic was amazing. Coming off of being left off the WrestleMania 27 card and getting 18 seconds to WrestleMania 28, people were just thriving. They were hungry. They were ready for an instant classic between Sheamus and Daniel Bryan in Extreme Rules, and they definitely delivered. Great match. In the end, Daniel Bryan came up short of winning the World Heavyweight Championship, but had an amazing showing in defeat. Coming in at number 7 from SummerSlam 2013, I'm sure this would rank up there. This is Daniel Bryan's, my top 5 favorite Daniel Bryan matches, not best. I'm sure this would be number 1 for many other people, but it's number 7 on my list. SummerSlam 2013 versus John Cena for the WWE Championship. I remember watching that pay-per-view at Buffalo Wild Wings. The dynamic was incredible. After 2 great matches between Del Rio and Christian, and Punk and Lesnar, my personal favorite match of 2013, Cena and Bryan followed it up with another amazing contest over the WWE title, tit for tat, going back and forth. In the end, Daniel Bryan winning clean to win his first WWE Championship before the whole cash-in with Randy Orton and Triple H going heel. An amazing angle that fell flat right afterwards, but despite that, the match itself was just phenomenal. And finally, before we get to my top 5, coming in at number 6, versus Wade Barrett at SummerSlam 2011. Now, this match I thought wasn't as good as some of the other matches I just mentioned, but I still thought it was very well wrestled. Easily a very underrated gem on that SummerSlam card, which was a great show, stacked with John Cena versus CM Punk for the WWE Championship. You had Orton and Christian no holds barred match for the WWE title, or rather for the World Heavyweight Championship. You had Sheamus versus Mark Henry. A lot of really, really good matches up and down the card. Beth Phoenix and Kelly Kelly was another surprisingly pleasant bout for the Davis Championship, and I thought Daniel Bryan and Wade Barrett, while they were not exactly over at that time, and it's funny now because Daniel Bryan was one of the most over people in the company at the height of his popularity in 2014, but at that point he didn't really know how to interact with a crowd, and they were just putting on a great wrestling match and saw Wade Barrett beat Mr. Money in the Bank clean 1, 2, 3. So now we move on to my top 5 favorite Daniel Bryan matches. Coming in at number 5, going a little bit more in-depth with these top 5 than I did with the honorable mention 6 through 10. From TLC 2012, not Daniel Bryan's, it's not a singles match involving Daniel Bryan, unlike a few of these other matches, but rather a 6-man tag team match. I would be remiss if I left this one out. Versus The Shield teaming up with fellow Team Hell No partner Kane and Ryback in the first ever 6-man tag team TLC matchup at one of my favorite pay-per-views as a wrestling fan. That whole show was just amazing in Brooklyn. You had Big Show and Sheamus in a chairs match with the World Heavyweight title. That was all right. You had a really, really good ladder match between John Cena and Dolph Ziggler in the main event for the Money in the Bank briefcase. And then you had this bout that I honestly thought was the single best match, or among the best matches in 2012, a late match of the year candidate. All 6 of these guys just going at it. I talked about it more in depth. A couple months ago I talked about it when I did my top 5 or my favorite TLC matches at the TLC pay-per-view. This might have been number 1 or 2 or whatever. It was certainly on that list, and I talked about it then too. But it's worth mentioning again because the match is just so fucking great. Daniel Bryan has just an amazing showcase that, putting the comedy aside, which was always entertaining with Team Hell No, one of my favorite tag teams in recent years, putting that comedy aside to just really display what he's capable of in the ring with 3 equally good workers in Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, and even Seth Rollins, who was a fucking madman in this matchup, falling off of ladders, crashing through tables, chairs galore, nothing at stake, just the Shield's first ever WWE match, and in the end, the Shield emerged victorious by pinning Daniel Bryan with a powerbomb off the top rope. Just amazing stuff from start to finish, and it might have been my number one match from my favorite TLC matches from the pay-per-view that I talked about in December. I can't exactly remember. It was 2 months ago, but easily my top five matches of Daniel Bryan in WWE. So coming in at number 4, that you won't find anywhere else right now other than the WWE Network from the November 11th episode from 2011 for WWE Superstars. Daniel Bryan versus William Regal. Just an amazing display of in-ring action, technical wrestling, just back and forth these two guys went. And even before the matchup started, William Regal coming out to a Real Man's Man theme song that he used in WWF in the late 90s. Just fantastic stuff from start to finish. These two obviously have a lot of history together, dating back to Daniel Bryan's start in his WWE career. He mentioned it in his retirement promo a number of weeks ago, and I just absolutely love this match. Like I said, if you were not an avid follower of WWE Superstars, you probably would not have known this match even existed. But thankfully, as someone pointed out to me, shout out to Clark Mora on Twitter, he pointed out to me just last week that this match is now available on the WWE Network in the Daniel Bryan's Best Matches collection or whatever, Best Matches and Moments. You could check out the full match there. I'm sure it's on Daily Motion or whatever. I don't know if it's on YouTube. And I know this isn't saying much, but easily my favorite match to ever take place on WWE Superstars. And that was also the anniversary that William Regal won the Intercontinental Championship in 2008. So I declare I put November 11th, I'm pretty sure it was the 10th. But from 2011, that day, November 10th, William Regal Day, for those 2 moments alone. But it also took place in England. I forgot to mention that. And just the history that these two had, it was just great to see William Regal in one of his final singles matches, I believe before retiring a number of months later. I think he was done as an in-ring wrestler. Shortly thereafterwards, I don't know if he wrestled many main roster matches after this. I know he wrestled, here and there in 2012 and in 2013, and that was about it. But this match, just his last truly great match in WWE versus William Regal, Daniel Bryan, from the November, I think it was the 10th, but it doesn't matter. Like I said, you can check it out on the WWE Network in Daniel Bryan's Best Matches and Moments collection. So coming in at number 3 on my list, again, for many people, I'm sure this is number 1, just my personal favorite list, so don't judge me, versus Randy Orton and Batista from WrestleMania 30 for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship in the main event of the show. What else is there to say? The build-up to this match, the build-up to that show was just so freaking well done. I know WrestleMania 30 at one point was just, it looked like, especially right after the Rumble, that it was bound to bomb, pretty much. It was bound to bomb. This, after CM Punk left and everything, it looked like we were getting Daniel Bryan and Sheamus and Cena and Wyatt, which I'm still regretful that we got at WrestleMania. It was a good match, and then Taker and Lesnar sucked, other than the moment of the streak breaking, which was good or bad, depending on how you look at it. It was a monumental moment, nevertheless. But still, Daniel Bryan's ascent throughout the road to WrestleMania was very apparent. It was a lot of fun to watch, building to this one match, or rather 2 matches. His opening match with Triple H from that show to determine who goes on in the main event of WrestleMania for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Daniel Bryan emerged victorious there in clean fashion. Great match. This match I thought was even better. And I've always said this, but these guys had the tough task of topping the streak getting broken. No other moment, any other match, I feel like, would not have been able to top that moment. The Divas title match died a fucking death because they were just, they took place right after the streak got broken. So the main event, although the crowd was dead early on, they were like, oh, why are we here? The streak got broken. It's a mournful moment. They really got into it midway through, and then especially down the stretch. All 3 guys, Daniel Bryan was the star of this match, but you got to give credit to Randy Orton and Batista, 2 great workers in their own right, especially Randy Orton. Batista had his shining moments as well. All 3 guys having just exceptional chemistry throughout this matchup. And Daniel Bryan persevering through, getting put through a powerbomb, getting put through an announce table via a powerbomb and an RKO, reverse RKO from the former Evolution stable mode. I'm stumbling all over my words here. I'm too excited. Over the Evolution stablemates, Daniel Bryan, or rather Randy Orton and Batista, through the commentary table. That was a sickening spot. Daniel Bryan was out for a while. Batista and Orton get back in the ring. They battle it out for a couple of minutes, and Orton at one point looked like he had the match won. Batista kicked out. Daniel Bryan gets off the stretcher. Doesn't sell the injuries. That was a bit questionable. Put that aside. The match was beautiful. Just in a beautiful display of just raw emotion and fans rallying behind Daniel Bryan because they wanted to see him, genuinely see him succeed and become the world champion, and ultimately he did. Tap out Batista, tap out Batista, tap out Batista. Just an amazing call. And those guys really put forth an excellent effort. Daniel Bryan forcing Batista to tap out, coming out on top with the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Yes-O-Mania, as Jerry Lawler billed it as. Once Daniel Bryan was celebrating with the championship on the commentary table, in the ring, just a beautiful moment. I'd be, again, like I said with the other two matches, I'd be remiss not to include it. But these other two matches I thought were even better. Not that they were better. I'll say that right now. I should rephrase that. Not that these two bouts were better. But again, these are my favorite Daniel Bryan matches. My favorite matches. I should put emphasis on that, not Daniel Bryan. My favorite matches that I had an emotional attachment to. Unlike, the further we get up the list, the more attachment I had to these bouts. But anyway, we get to my second favorite Daniel Bryan match of all time. Again, not nearly as good, but still one of my favorite matches, my second favorite match of Daniel Bryan's, from the 2010 Night of Champions pay-per-view. Now, arguably, it depends on the day if you would ask me what my favorite Daniel Bryan matches of all time, either this one or the next one. For this list, I put it number 2. It's really interchangeable. I would probably put them on the same slot if not this one above it. It really doesn't matter either way. But this match I thought was just really, really good. I've talked about it before. I talked about it in my five favorite Night of Champions matches a number of months ago, back in September. I talked about it in my video where I met Daniel Bryan in late 2014. I met him in 2010, but I put up the video in late 2014. So I won't go in too much detail here. I've already kind of talked about it before. Night of Champions 2010, that was 2 weeks short of when I was meeting Daniel Bryan for sure at Northeast Wrestling on October 1st, 2010, a Friday in Waterbury, Connecticut. So if he won this match, and that Sunday, October 3rd, he was defending that U.S. title in a match. So there was no pay-per-view in between. So unless he lost the championship on Raw or SmackDown or something, he would be going to that Northeast Wrestling show as United States champion. And when he was booked for that show initially, he wasn't even a part of the company in early August. But he returned at SummerSlam, challenged Miz for the Star Spangled Prize and Night of Champions, those two having, in my personal opinion, Miz's best match ever in WWE. And I thought the match of the night. Miz and Bryan, regardless of what you thought of the decision regardless of what you thought of the decision to put Bryan with Miz when he first joined WWE as his pro on the inaugural season of NXT, they had such, no pun intended, awesome chemistry together throughout that season and the story they told from that point forward. Even in the years that followed, Miz would take credit for Daniel Bryan's success in 2014 and in early 2015. The matches they had on Raw and SmackDown were just great, and I really, really enjoyed them. And this match was my favorite of them all, for the United States Championship. Not their first ever singles match, but they would have a few other singles matches in the years that followed, but this was easily my favorite, just going back and forth. But again, as good as the match was from an in-ring standpoint, what made it my favorite was the fact that I was going to meet Daniel Bryan, win, lose, or draw 2 weeks later at Northeast Wrestling. So if he won here, I'd be meeting him as United States champion. So in the end, when Miz finally tapped out and the generic music hit, that was my personal favorite Daniel Bryan theme song. It was generic as all hell, but I thought it was great. You'd have to look it up. It was a theme that he used right when he came back in 2010, before he used Ride of the Valkyries, both that and the remix, and a few other songs as well in 2011. So that music hits, he forces Miz to tap out, and it finally started to settle in as I'm going crazy on my couch. My family was gone. I was watching the pay-per-view by myself. I exploded with excitement knowing I'd be meeting Daniel Bryan as U.S. champion, and it was at that moment I became a Daniel Bryan fan. So no surprise that it ranks pretty high up on the list as my favorite Daniel Bryan matches. And then we get to number 1. Again, any other day of the week, I probably would have put Miz and Bryan from Night of Champions 2010. Excuse me 1 second, gotta subtly check my phone. I'm expecting my parents in a couple minutes. They're picking me up for dinner. Nevertheless, I just gotta mention, I gotta keep on looking back at my phone. But, so like I said, any other day of the week, I probably would have said that match with Miz from Night of Champions 2010, just because of the reasons I just talked about. But for some reason, I just really fucking love this match from 2012's Over the Limit pay-per-view for the WWE Championship. Daniel Bryan and CM Punk. And the thing about this match, it had it didn't have what the previous matchup did, a build. Bryan and Punk going into Over the Limit had basically zero build at all. Punk was feuding Laurinaitis, he was feuding with Tensai, he was feuding with basically anybody but Daniel Bryan. And the only thing that we knew for sure was that they were going to have a good fucking match at the pay-per-view. And they would have other matches on Raw and SmackDown in the months that followed and at Money in the Bank 2012, and they were all good and grand and whatever, but this was my personal favorite because it exceeded all expectations. And that's saying something because I knew these two were going to have a great match regardless. But it was just probably one of the best wrestling matches I had ever seen, and still is to this day. I'd call it my favorite match of 2012, if not Triple H and Undertaker from WrestleMania 28. If that's not number one, then this one certainly is. Again, for a match with zero build, the crowd was super behind both guys. Just a wrestling clinic these two put on. And Daniel Bryan especially, coming off of his great matches with Sheamus at Extreme Rules and on Raw and SmackDown, he really had his work cut out for him, but he ended up exceeding those expectations and putting on a great match with CM Punk, who also was coming off a strong series of matches with Chris Jericho at a WrestleMania and Extreme Rules respectively. But they managed to topple it all, put on an amazing contest, and in the end, Punk was just barely able to beat Bryan by forcing him to tap out. Or maybe, I think he pinned Bryan, and then Punk tapped out. And then there was a lot of controversy surrounding the finish, which would obviously set up future rematches for No Way Out in the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. But from a wrestling standpoint, this was my favorite wrestling match that Daniel Bryan had. But like I said, all 5 of these matches are basically interchangeable. So once again, from 5 through 1, I already talked about 6 through 10 before. Quick recap here. Number 5 versus The Shield with Ryback and Kane at TLC 2012. Number 4 versus William Regal from the November, I think it was the 10th, 2011 edition of WWE Superstars. Number 3 versus Randy Orton and Batista for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship in the main event of WrestleMania 30. Number 2 versus The Miz for the United States Championship from Night of Champions 2010. And coming in at number 1 for the WWE Championship versus CM Punk from 2012's Over the Limit pay-per-view. So those are my favorite Daniel Bryan matches. Like I said, if we did all 10, we'd probably have twice the video length. So I'm glad I know 17 minutes is pretty long, but it's average for all these other video vlogs that I do here on the channel. But I want to hear your guys' list. What are your favorite Daniel Bryan matches? They don't have to be just WWE. That's why I followed his career, so I'm not going to include any matches from Japan or Ring of Honor. I'm sure those are among your favorites as well. But I would love to hear you on the Twitter, at WrestleRant, on Facebook, at facebook.com/Graham.Jason.Matthews. All the links are down below. And speaking of down below, be sure to leave a comment with your favorite Daniel Bryan matches. All support is greatly appreciated. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. And we'll be back next Friday with a, probably a you never know who might be a wrestling fan video where I discuss a story of someone I didn't think was a wrestling fan. I've been doing these videos. We're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of when I did my first one, so I think we're coming up on part 8 or part 7 or something. So anyway, that will be up next Friday, hopefully. I'll probably record that tomorrow, and that'll be up on the final Friday of February. So until then, guys, enjoy all the other content here on the channel. Have a great weekend. Enjoy Fastlane on Sunday. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch you folks down the road.